Misuse your powers for evil.
Your evil is mine.
To Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS once again to talk about the Power of Three with my partner in time and everybody's favorite partner in crime, Jesse Jackson.
Yeah, I feel like I should be singing a Huey Lewis song, The Power of Three.
It's the Power of Three.
Yes. Yeah, I'm excited. This is in our continuing series of previewing the future.
Yes. This will be the last of our Chris Chibnall Doctor Who retrospective. We are going to talk about a few of his Torchwood episodes later on, but for right now, this will be the last, because this is the last script he wrote for Doctor Who, at least until Series 11 premieres later this fall. So, we're going to talk about The Power of Three. And, again, this was written by Chibnall, directed by Douglas McKinnon, who also directed the episodes Cold War, The Husbands of River Song, Time Heist, and Flatline, among others. So, and this is from 2012, the fourth episode of Series 7. So, Jesse, can't wait to talk about this. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
I did. Not as much as my last, as Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, but I loved it. There's a lot of good things with the episode, but one minor issue with me, and as we get to more details, I'll talk about that.
Okay, that's fine. So give a little background on this one. We have the return of Mark Williams as Brian Williams, who we last talked about in our previous episode 105, when we talked about Dinosaurs in a Spaceship. He, of course, famous for Arthur Weasley in the Harry Potter movies, and was also in the movie Stardust, which is based on a Neil Gaiman novel. And this episode is notable also because it has the debut of Jemma Redgrave as Kate Stewart, the daughter of everybody's favorite companion from the classic era. Semi-companion, because he wasn't really an official one, but everybody's favorite, though, Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things going for this episode. It is, we see Unit back, and we see Kate, and, she's gone on to be in many episodes, and truly just one of the favorite additions to the modern era of Doctor Who.
Okay.
Yes.
So Kate, Jemma Redgrave, famous for some movies. You or your spouse may have watched Howard's End, and the recent movie Love and Friendship, which had Kate Beckinsale in it. So she's been familiar for that. We also had Stephen Burkoff as Shakri, the villain of the piece. He was famous for he's a character actor who plays a lot of bad guys, bad military guys maybe. He shows up every so often. He played General Orloff in the Roger Moore movie of James Bond era, Octopussy, from 1983. And he was the bad guy in Beverly Hills Cop, the first one with Eddie Murphy. And he was in Rambo First Blood Part 2, and recently in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So pretty notable actor, at least the character actor. So that's a pretty interesting cast in this one, and primarily this story is essentially kind of, I would think, the last real hurrah for the triumvirate of the 11th Doctor, Amy and Rory, before we say goodbye to them in the following episode, The Angels Take Manhattan.
Yes.
And so this is what we get here is another invasion episode, but it's a very slow invasion. And I'm going to break this down into 3 parts, of course. And keeping with the 3 motif, I decided to name the first segment Three Amigos. The Three Amigos, which, of course, is the 11th Doctor, Amy, and Rory. So I want to get your thoughts on them as the 11th Doctor is trying to deal with the fact that Amy and Rory are kind of breaking away from him ever so slowly and kind of adjusting to real life on Earth.
Because I know what's coming, I read into this discussions, and if I remember correctly, when the show was originally on, I had the same feelings because it was announced beforehand that Arthur and Karen were leaving this series. So, I did like the idea of Amy and Rory realizing they had 2 lives.
Right.
They're addicted to the adventures or the Doctor, depending on how you look at it, and how they both decided kind of independently of each other that maybe it was time to get to real life and get away from, and this is the wrong way to put it, but vacation mode.
Right.
Sometimes you hear about people wanting a structure, like when they're retired or if they have a lot of time on their hand, they need a structure. So you could certainly see that them going, well, maybe one more trip, but then it's time to settle down.
Yeah, I think so. And, and they seem they're reluctant to give it up, at least at first. There's a bit at the beginning where they're just like, they're living their lives after, they start off kind of, we kind of see the after effects when they kind of, with this arrangement they have of returning to Earth almost like months later after they leave. And, their food has gone bad. They're out of, washing machine stuff, or at least their dirty laundry's bad. They've got 59 messages on their answering machine. And, so they try to play catch up and they get settled. And then the Doctor shows up and they're kind of at first they're talking about maybe we should kind of give this up and kind of settle into our real life. And then they hear the Doctor and they're just okay, maybe not right now.
Excuse me.
You're right there.
Yeah, all of a sudden I had a cough. And I thought it was very telling when her friend says, I want you to be a bridesmaid, but you've kind of been in and out.
Right.
And everyone's telling Rory how much they love him at the hospital, but they want more. And they both kind of make the decision they're going to be more dependable. However, we know how that ends up.
Yeah. So, they start to commit, which both of them are hey, I can't believe I actually committed to something long term, which I think is them without realizing it. Or at least they start to realize that, well, hey, maybe I kind of like the idea of not traveling with the Doctor now. Then we get the information that it's been 10 years since they started, even though for the show it's only been a couple.
Yeah, do you have any idea why they decided to go that way, Charles?
Well, I just think that they kind of wanted to jump ahead in Amy and Rory's life so that they can kind of give them the impression that, well, they've been around traveling with the Doctor for quite a while, and they're kind of ready to give it up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so yeah, I just think it's the kind of give them a little bit more time. Like, well, hey, maybe a few years wouldn't have been like, well, what, why are you giving this up after just a few years? But after 10 years, you could kind of see, well, hey, maybe they're kind of ready for something different.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, while all this is going on, of course, we get the invasion of these very small cubes, these small black cubes. I don't know if you can see this, Jesse, since you have your camera turned off, but.
Okay.
He's turning on his camera. Let's see
Yes.
what happens. Hopefully this call won't blow up.
Okay. So you have a black cube?
I'm sorry?
You have a black cube?
Yeah, I actually have a cube here. I know you're taking a while to come up on my screen, but yeah, I actually have it's actually a small black cube. It's like a magic trick box that I got way back in the day. Like I've had forever, at least, like before I can remember when I got this from when I was a wee lad. And it's this kind of cool cube that it looks like one of the black cubes on in this episode, but then it separates.
Ah, okay.
It's kind of like a trick cube, like how do you open this thing? And there's a trick to it. So,
nice.
But so it's kind of like a very simple puzzle box thing. So, it's kind of cool. It's like I had it all these years, and then this episode came out in 2012, and I'm like, oh my god, I've got one of the black cubes from this episode. So, timey-wimey things going on, maybe.
Absolutely.
Who knows? But
I did not care for the black cube. I mean, I get what they were trying to go for, but I just didn't think this was a very good villain. I like the idea of the slow burn on, an invasion, but it just, I don't think there was a big payoff on this. And that, I remember when I watched the episode the first time and then I watched it again, Amy and Rory is funny. The Doctor, trying to be patient and live a regular life. Not quite as good as the Lodger, but still had some moments. But Kate coming and Unit is great. But the actual bad guy and the villain, I didn't care for at all. I didn't think it was particularly scary. I just thought it was almost an afterthought. What did you think of it?
Well, just this slow invasion, and let's just dive into the second topic I want to talk about. Three on a Couch, which the first topic, Three Amigos, that's the name of a 1986 movie starring Martin Short, Steve Martin, and Chevy Chase. Well, Three on a Couch is a 1966 Jerry Lewis and Janet Leigh movie. So keeping with our three theme here, I thought I'd go with today. So this is about basically Brian, who's kind of left behind to watch this slow invasion. So I thought this would be a good time to talk about Brian and the cubes. Hey, you finally materialized on my screen.
Yay!
There he is. So maybe now you can see my shiny black cubes.
I could, yes.
Yeah. So I actually have one of the cube. All right. Sorry, folks, we're struggling with this one, so apologies to everybody. So, so Brian taking the Doctor's request to kind of just watch the cubes. I think the Doctor was intending, well, you could just watch the cubes for a little bit, and if you see anything, let me know. Well, as the course of because this is such a slow invasion, months and months go by, and the Doctor will check in every so often, and he gets really impatient and bored just hanging around waiting for something to happen. Nothing happens. And there's kind of a very funny montage where he's kind of restless, and he's sitting with Amy and Rory on the couch. So we also have Three on a Couch here. And he's tired of waiting, so he goes outside. He's kicking around a soccer ball or a football in Britain. And and he's painting their fence, and he's doing a bunch of laundry or whatever, hanging that up, and intending to like kill a whole bunch of time, and it turns out to be like, maybe 45 minutes. So
Yeah, which was very funny.
He's just like, come on. So he's like, that's it, I'm out of here. So he goes off and has some adventures and keeps checking back in and out with them over the course of the year, waiting for something to happen. Brian, meanwhile, to get back to Brian, he sits around watching this thing. Like, there's a scene where he's in the TARDIS with his fold-out chair, and just kind of sitting there watching the cubes, sitting there just eating a sandwich or whatever and sipping his coffee, just watching away. Or later at his home, he's got like a camera mounted up so that he can record anything that happens with the cubes in case something happens, and he plays it back, which sounds like a very dull existence, but apparently Brian's up to this task.
Yeah, I did like the journal part of it. Nothing, day 363, nothing new to report. It's like, okay, after a while, it's like, okay, I'm going to let it go. But nope, not our man.
Not Brian, no,
Exactly.
Definitely not. So this seems like the perfect task for Brian.
It does.
And, I think it's funny. Brian is very helpful in this episode, at least in a supporting role. There's a moment where there's been some cases of cube attacks once the cubes finally wake up and start doing this countdown thing. But they start the cubes kind of take on their own individual attributes. Like some are very hostile, some just kind of play music or whatever, and so some of the people have been injured by the cubes, and there's a big thing at the hospital where Rory works. So Brian goes with Rory to kind of help out where he can, and I think that's kind of Brian's strength, is that he's very supportive.
Yes,
and I like that, and obviously Brian and Rory are getting along better than they did, in Dinosaurs of Spaceship, at least the beginning. So now they've kind of like settled into this new relationship, or at least a new phase of their relationship as father and son, which I kind of like.
Yes.
All right. So let's dive into my third topic this week as we continue the Power of Three theme. 3 Days of the Condor, and
Ooh.
This is a reference to a 1975 kind of CIA espionage kind of political thriller, which starred Robert Redford and Faye Dunaway. And so this is kind of like secret agents. So I thought this would be a good time to talk about Kate Stewart and Unit. So give me your thoughts on Kate Stewart's first appearance, Jesse.
At least from my perspective, you like her almost immediately. You just
right.
She comes across as confident. She holds her own against the Doctor. She's so confident based on that. Your dress style, you must be the Doctor. And I have loved her every time she's been on there. She's been a great character. I hope we see more of her, and I'm hoping, since Chris Chibnall kind of helped bring her about, right? This is the first script. I hope we see her, and yeah, everything about this unit, this era of a unit is enjoyable, and she just is such an interesting character.
Yeah, I think so. And they try to throw you a curveball by just calling her Kate Stewart, and you're like, well, okay, is she related to Brigadier? Now, longtime hardcore Doctor Who fans know that the Brigadier had a daughter, Kate Lethbridge Stewart, who appeared in like an unofficial production called Downtime way back in the day, played by a different actress. But here she's introduced as Kate Stewart, kind of officially now. And so we're like, okay, is this the same character? Or wondering if the same character. And then there's a scene where the Doctor kind of mentions her father, and we kind of piece it together. The Doctor asks her why she dropped the Lethbridge, and she says, well, I didn't want any favoritism, which I think is a credit to Kate.
Absolutely.
And she talks about, like the Doctor's kind of surprised to see a scientific advisor leading unit, which, remember back in the 70s in the John Pertwee era, the Doctor was the scientific advisor, but back then was very at odds with the military, and they've kind of, they obviously the brigadier was definitely in charge of unit. But here, Kate mentions that science leads, which is something her father told her, and presumably as a result of his interaction with the Doctor. And so it's kind of affected, his viewpoint on things, and kind of gave Kate the inspiration to step into a leadership role at unit, which I think was rather nice.
Oh, it's so nice, and it's so appropriate, and it just, once again, what I love is both showrunners we've had in the modern era, and I believe Chibnall will do the same thing, is they tie the past. They aren't shackled by it, but they embrace it. They use it as seasoning, almost Easter eggs, so that you can enjoy the modern story without knowing any of the classic episodes. But for those of you who are fans or go back and want to study, there's that added layer of continuity and story that is just so lovely.
So Kate and the Doctor, they're Kate and the unit, we find out during the course of the story, has been collecting some of the cubes and studying them. One of the cubes is causing mood swings. They have cubes in kind of like isolated chambers, just in case the effects or whatever. One is causing mood swings, as we find out. Another is playing the chicken dance, that annoying song at wedding receptions that apparently at least 50% of the people demand at wedding receptions for some insane reason.
Yes.
And but it's just one of those wedding traditions that some people really enjoy, some people really hate. I'm kind of one of the latter, admittedly. And just that, and then the cubes start counting down to this threat, and ultimately the cubes start inducing cardiac arrests in people, and it's kind of like their way to kind of essentially take over. They basically kill about a third of humanity, which is kind of a big deal, I would think. That's millions and millions of people. And the Doctor's affected, but of course, because he has two hearts, he's still able to kind of function on one, although he's not very happy about it and kind of gets a little grumpy.
Hello, Lefty, right?
Hello, Lefty. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So that was kind of but once Amy gives him a shock paddle with a defibrillator and jump starts his second heart. So and ultimately this leads to the Shakri ship in orbit, where apparently we found out the Shakri, at least according to Gallifreyan legend, were the self-appointed pest controllers of the universe. And the Shakri apparently released the cubes on Earth to wipe out humanity and to kind of set them up for a greater invasion to follow. And just apparently the Shakri are very patient about their approach. And so, of course, the Doctor stops Shakri, saves the day, and ultimately we end at the episode with that Amy, Rory, and Brian, or Amy and Rory are kind of like torn about traveling with the Doctor, and it's kind of Brian who suggests, hey, I've traveled with the Doctor, and you should really go out there and have the chance to kind of save the world and make it a better place.
Yeah, I like that Brian tells them to go. I hope with us knowing what's going to come that he doesn't have guilt over that.
Right.
Yes, but it was nice.
Yeah, it was nice. Now, you mentioned you had a rant you wanted to talk about, so let's hear what rant you had.
Well, I just didn't think it was. Yeah, I didn't think it was a very good villain.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't think that what they were going for worked. I didn't feel very threatened. It wasn't very frightening. It was just the weakest part of the story. I think it could have used a good rewrite and made the villain a little more either scary or shocking or a little more dangerous. And I didn't feel that this was a significant that part of the story.
Well, what I think is just it's the structure of the story, the nature of the story itself. Because you had this slow invasion, the pacing doesn't quite work as a threat. Essentially, this story is a character story about like, okay, Amy and Rory are trying to adjust to real life on Earth, and there's this really slow invasion, so it's not very urgent, at least not until the very end of the episode. So as a result, any kind of sense of tension is lost. And I think it's just one of those. This story is kind of the victim of the idea of the premise, really, that like, hey, wouldn't it be nice to kind of see if there was like, instead of like all of a sudden aliens show up, what if it was like spread out over the course of a year, and what would that be like, and how would Amy and Rory, what would go on with them on Earth while this is going on? So it's just, I think it was just, that just this idea that ultimately doesn't work as far as like an alien invasion story, but it works as a character story, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I agree with that. It is a wonderful character story. I just think they tried to shoehorn, the great Buffy episode, is it Zeppo?
The Zeppo. Which is about Xander.
Is they
totally being a fifth wheel. Yeah,
they totally made the decision that they only focused on him, and they didn't focus on the crisis whatsoever. Similar to like in Blink, where Martha and the Doctor are going to fight this other villain we never even know about. They just focus on the story. So I think, and it's easy for me to edit after the fact, but if they had pushed this chapter, this character and Kate more, I think it would have been a more enjoyable story. I would have rated it higher when we get to our ratings.
Yeah. I mean, I did love it, and I kind of gave this a little bit more of appreciation because of Kate being part of this.
Absolutely.
And I was really happy that she was introduced. So I'm not so much like focusing on the threat of the cubes in this, or and the Shakri. I'm focusing more of this with the Doctor meeting Kate and Amy and Rory on Earth with Brian.
Yeah, and it is a
because it's kind of like the calm before the storm that we get in the following episode, The Angels Take Manhattan.
Absolutely, I can see that.
All right, okay. Anything else about this episode before we move on?
Nope. I'm good.
All right.
How would you? What's your rating?
Well, all right. You want to do that, or you want to do best lines first?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Best lines are fine. I just I'm curious to know what you're going to rate it, but we'll talk about stories. I'll start with, and hopefully you can hear them.
Okay.
I love the part where Rory is in his underpants, and he goes, "There are soldiers all over my house, and I'm in my pants." And Amy, my whole life I've dreamed of saying that, and I miss it by being someone else.
Yeah, I thought that was a good exchange. I like that a lot. Mm-hmm. That was good.
Yeah.
One of the lines I liked, where the Doctor's talking about the cubes, and Brian's there, And he says, like the cubes, all absolutely identical. Not a single molecule's difference between them. No blemishes, imperfections, individualities. And Brian kind of responds rather hysterically, what if they're bombs? Billions of tiny bombs, or transport capsules maybe with a mini robot inside, or deadly hard drives, or alien eggs, or messages needing decoding, or they're all parts of a bigger whole, jigsaw puzzles that need fitting together. And the Doctor replies, very thorough, Brian. Very, very thorough. Well done. Stay here. Watch these. Yell if anything happens.
Yeah.
So he kind of did like, okay, Brian,
okay,
whatever.
You've mentioned all of them, yeah. The other great is Roy says, I'm off to work. And the Doctor, what? You've got a job?
Yeah.
Of course I've got a. What do you think we do when you're not with you? And the Doctor, I imagine mostly kissing.
Yeah, that was good.
That was very good. Yes.
That was great. I like the one scene where the Doctor's kind of staring into this hovering cube that kind of interrupts his like Wii Pong game or whatever, his Wii tennis game. And he says, whatever you are, this planet, these people are precious to me, and I will defend them to my last breath. And then he's like, is that all you can do? Hover? I had a metal dog who could do that. So,
shout out to
nice,
K9, who we
shout
love.
out to K9. Yep.
Who we know we love.
Yep, exactly.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Any other quotes?
No quotes. I'm not going to. There is a long discussion between the Doctor and Amy about him searching for the galaxy, and
yeah.
I just love that. I thought about when Matt Smith regenerated and they made a point of having the vision of Amy show up. There is a special bond between the Doctor and Amy, and I love that they paid tribute to this in a really, really beautiful way.
Okay. All right. So I had one last quote before we move on.
Good.
The Doctor says to Amy, one day, soon maybe, you'll stop. I've known for a while. And Amy replies, then why do you keep coming back for us? And the Doctor replies, because you were the first face this face saw. And you were seared onto my hearts, Amelia Pond. You always will be. I'm running to you and Rory before you fade from me. And Amy replies, don't be nice to me. I don't want you to be nice to me. And the Doctor smiles and says, yeah, you do, Pond, and you always get what you want.
Yeah, I just love that. It was so beautiful. Good job.
Yep. So this is kind of, like I always kind of saw this as like one last hurrah before the dark times with losing Amy and Rory to the Weeping Angels.
Absolutely.
All right. So what's your rating for this one?
So I, for all my faults with it, because of the things you mentioned, Kate Stewart, Amy and Rory, the Doctor, kind of their discussions, I'm going to give this 8.5 paint brushes on a fence.
Okay. All right. I give this one, for rather obvious reasons, I gave this one 8 black cubes.
Oh, so I actually rated it ahead of you.
You actually rated it ahead of me. Yeah, I thought this was okay, but it's not a very, especially great episode. I thought it was solid, but, just not especially great. So you actually, you came in a little higher than me.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of interesting because it sounded like I enjoyed the episode more than you did.
Well, I actually was going to give it an 8, but then when I started talking about Kate and you discussion, I said, okay, I'm going to give it a little bit more than just an 8.
Oh, so I encouraged you to notch it up a point.
Yes, you did. Very nice. We have feedback.
Oh, feedback. You want to do feedback now? Okay,
Please.
We can do that. All right, let's do that. We'll jump ahead here. Normally we do our reverse this polarity segment, so he's going to throw me a little.
You can do that.
No, it's okay. It's cool. Okay, I can adapt. I'm good with that. So let me pull up my.
Yeah, everyone. Charles cannot hear me. If you guys have not figured this out, he's hearing every third word.
Basically, yeah. So I'm struggling. So I'm really hoping this records on your end because it's going to sound crappy on mine. I just know this. So fair warning. All right. So let's see. We hear from Holly Mack once again. So Holly from Wisconsin writes in, and she says, "Hey guys, great last episode, The Power of Three. Forgot how good this episode was and how it continues the adventures of Brian with Amy, Rory, and the Doctor. Amy and Rory are finding out that it's kind of hard balancing two lives and that they enjoy their life with the Doctor. We also get the reappearance of It and their undignified entrance into the house. And, yeah, because they just kind of barge in and rather stormtrooper-like. And it's like, okay, did we really need that? Couldn't you just kind of, knock on the door politely? Nice to see Kate again. The only test Kate didn't do was 5 rounds rapid fire. So, yeah, that was kind of like her father's signature phrase, 5 rounds rapid, which I kind of liked. So, yeah, I see what you did there, Holly. She says, love the montage of the Doctor keeping busy, and it only ate up an hour of his time. And she continues, when the cubes start to activate, you really don't know what's going to happen next, if they're all going to activate once or slowly. Brian's little heart-to-heart with the Doctor was nice, and that both of them know the element of danger was with adventuring with the Doctor. Also, a rule of thumb with the Doctor should follow a little more often. Don't taunt objects that start to move. You could get hurt. Yeah, you'd think he'd know by now. I totally agree. The special effects in this episode were fantastic. Fantastic. Doctor, be glad you have 2 hearts instead of 1. Rory protecting Brian from the odd orderlies gave me slight flashbacks to the Black Spot episode. Ooh, that's a good reference. Amy needs to check the Doctor's video feed. After she shocks him, it's like he's channeling his inner wild and crazy guy, Steve Martin, which had me chuckling. The Shakri were an interesting enemy, and to quote a previous incarnation of the Doctor, everybody lives. So that's kind of like your second Ninth Doctor reference in this feedback with the fantastic. I love how Brian encourages Amy and Rory to go with the Doctor, and it was very touching, too, that the Doctor asked Brian to come along as well. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin.
Very nice. Thank you, Holly.
Yeah, thank you, Holly. All right, and we have one more from our other regular here in our feedback, Paul Beck from Australia. So Paul writes in, hi, Charles and Jesse. This year, The Slow Invasion, as Amy puts it, is an intriguing episode. With the arrival of the little black cubes worldwide, we have a threat that takes a year to manifest, showing how impatient the Doctor can be, especially when he doesn't like knowing what is going on. As he says, patience is for wimps. I think the story is more about Amy and Rory trying to decide whether to have a so-called normal life or face up to the addictive quality of traveling with the Doctor. I agree, Paul. It is also about the Doctor struggling to realize he will have to let them go at some stage, probably soon, in the very next episode, as it turns out. I love the wistful Doctor scenes with Amy talking about how long, from her perspective, she has known him, and later the Doctor talking about Amy's face being the first face this new face saw. Such well-written scenes with great acting. I agree. This episode also has great humor, and the Doctor's present to Amy and Rory that ends with a Zygon threat at the Savoy Hotel, and Amy accidentally agreeing to marry Henry VIII. So, yeah, she could have been the 7th wife of Henry VIII, for all you Tudors fans out there. And the Doctor getting the use of his heart back with "Welcome back, Lefty" was very funny. We like that as well. And this episode also has the emotional punches, too, with the arrival of Kate Stewart, only without the Lethbridge, because she dropped it. Such a great nod to the past. Brian, Rory's dad, just being back just tops the cake. I really like his character, as do I. And I'm sure as does Jesse. I wish, in parentheses he puts, I wish they could have had more episodes with him in it. I totally agree. Because, yeah, that was kind of a wasted opportunity. But sadly, he kind of was introduced too late in Amy and Rory's tenure as companions. So, but at least we got a couple episodes with him, which is better than nothing, right? As always, sending you my kindest regards, Paul. Oh, I forgot one more thing he wrote. As I write this email, I realize just how much I enjoyed this episode more than I remember on first viewing. The chemistry between Karen and Matt in their scenes together is just perfect. And then he adds, P.S. Please explain to me the cube that plays the chicken dance song. That cube really scared me too.
Well done, sir.
And then he has a PSS. Where in time and space are we going now, gents? Can't wait to find out. Well, since we're a little out of order, you're going to just have to wait just a little bit longer toward the end of the episode, Paul. But thanks for setting us up once again, as always. So thank you, Paul. Thank you, Holly, for writing in. You guys are great, and Jesse and I definitely appreciate you guys writing in.
We absolutely.
You always bring something nice to our show. All right. So I do have a reverse the polarity segment before we find out what's going to be next on Next Up Everywhere. So I'll try to get through this rather quickly. We're going to reverse the polarity back to 1968 with The Invasion, which was the third serial of season 6 in 1968, written by Derek Sherwin from a story by Kit Pedler, co-creator of the Cybermen. So, as you might imagine, the Cybermen kind of feature in this episode. In this episode, the story, the TARDIS evades a missile fired by a spaceship on the moon, landing the second Doctor, Jamie and Zoe, in late 20th century England, presumably around 1968. The visual stabilizer is damaged and renders the TARDIS invisible, so they try to find Professor Edward Travers from previous episodes, The Abominable Snowman and The Web of Fear, to seek his assistance. They hitch a lift to London, and the lorry driver talks of this company, International Electromatics, the world's largest electronics manufacturer. And the Doctor discovers that Professor Travers has left for America with his daughter, leaving his London home in the care of Isabel Watkins and her scientist uncle, Professor Watkins, who has mysteriously disappeared while working for, you guessed it, International Electromatics. So the Doctor and Jamie go to IE's head office in London to investigate. And the electronic receptionist there refuses them entry, and they end up arrested and taken before IE's managing director, the sinister Tobias Vaughn, with his kind of lazy eye that denotes all evil supervillains. And he gives them this really BS story of Professor Watkins being at a delicate stage in his work and refusing to see anyone, which of course they know is completely false. Doctor's obviously suspicious, noticing that the Inhuman Vaughn never blinks once during their meetings. And the Doctor and JB end up abducted, taken to a military transport aircraft, housing a complete operations room where, guess what, they are reunited with Colonel Lethbridge Stewart, who they last saw in The Web of Fear, who has now been promoted to Brigadier, and he's in charge of the military task force unit. So this is the very first story with Unit. So, which is obviously the big connection here to the Power 3, which has the introduction of Kate Stewart and Unit. He explains that Unit's investigating IE because whenever people visit the IE offices, they're strangely different afterwards. Now, to kind of sum things up rather quickly, obviously we find out that Cybermen are behind all this, staging their, you guessed it, invasion of Earth. And so ultimately we get to the showdown between Unit and the Cybermen, with the Unit troops wiping out the Cybermen with hand grenades and whatnot. But Unit intends to deploy a Russian missile to destroy the Cybermen's plan to transmit this signal heading to start off this invasion. But that gets taken care of, and Vaughn ends up killed when the Cybermen shoot him down. But that homing signal is shut off by the help of some Unit soldiers. So Unit helps save the day. This Megaton Megatron bomb, which was supposed to be activated by the signal, is destroyed by anti-missile missile, and the I guess a Russian rocket destroys the cyber ship broadcasting this control signal from above. So that gets taken care of, and the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe end up helping to save the day with the help of UNIT, and all is well once again.
Yay!
So, yay! So, as it should be. So, if you're looking for a good classic UNIT story, again, this is the first appearance of UNIT, so you might want to check this out if you're a UNIT buff. And it's called The Invasion, and good Second Doctor classic, in my opinion.
Nice.
And now, unfortunately, this was the story was missing a couple episodes, but they were finished with animation. So this is complete and out, available for you to download. I think it's on iTunes or whatnot. If not, if you can track down the DVDs, it's definitely available on DVD. So, all right. We did the feedback. So next time on Next Stop Everywhere, we have a new special guest companion, don't we, Jesse?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, Christine Peruski was kind enough to email us a while back, and just now we had to wait. We wanted to finish up the Chibnall retrospective, at least the Doctor Who retrospective, before we could kind of fit her in. And so next time, with Christine's agreement, we are going to discuss the Shakespeare Code, the classic 10th Doctor story featuring our favorite companion, Martha Jones, who was apparently not really a favorite of Christine. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to talking about that. It is a great episode, and Christine is always a lot of fun. She's joined me on the Game of Thrones podcast and the American Gods Roadside Attractions podcast, so she's going to be great.
Yeah, I've heard, at least on the American Gods podcast, I've heard that the Roadside Attractions. So I think she's going to do really well, and probably going to show both of us up because she's so good.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, make me look really embarrassingly bad probably by comparison. But I'm definitely looking forward to meeting Christine. We've kind of exchanged some emails, but this will be the first time I will be able to share a podcast with her. So I'm kind of looking forward to this.
Oh,
and I know that obviously you've got history with her, so I think it'll be a great fit. So everybody come on back.
Absolutely. In the meantime, if they want to tell us how much they enjoyed us not getting to hear each other, how can they give us feedback, Charles?
Yeah, so if you want to be like Christine and you want to email us or whatnot, or you want to be like Holly and Paul and email us, you can reach us at nextstopeverywheresmg, don't forget the SMG, at gmail.com, or you can drop us a line on our Facebook page, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. We're still kind of languishing around the 170 mark. We'd obviously like to get to the mighty 200. So if you haven't already liked us on Facebook, please do so. We'd definitely appreciate that. Or tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your alien invaders about us. We'd love to hear from them as well. And also you can reach us on the Twitter machine at NextStopSMG on Twitter, and we will be glad to read your comments and whatnot here on the podcast, as we do with Holly and Paul.
Absolutely.
All right, Jesse, providing that this gets through to everyone, where can they reach you on the interwebs?
You can catch me at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. You can hear me on Set Leslie Bruce, and I'm also on Facebook, Jesse Jackson in Louisville, Texas. And Charles, how about you?
Well, of course, I'm at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter machine, at Charles Skaggs on the Instagram. Google Plus for all you crazy kids in the Google Plus. Shout out to Karen. Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs, and my blog of geeky things. If this will work.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. Where I talk about all things Next Stop Everywhere, Doctor Who, Torchwood, and of course any comic book, sci-fi goodness. And even Jesse's dog approves of Damn Good Coffee and Hot. So how
Yes,
about that
he
for a
does.
recommendation? So if you can't believe Jesse's dog, who can you believe?
That's right. And I am looking forward to this week's Black Panther review. I know it took you a little bit of time for you and Lori to get in there. I have tickets after this. We finished recording. I'm heading over to the movie theater to see it myself.
Yeah, unfortunately, Lori wasn't able to join me. I went yesterday, but we're going to see it probably next weekend together so that she can see it. But I enjoyed it. Obviously, going to enjoy seeing it a second time. The cinematography and the costumes are great, and it's a great movie. So go see it. I definitely recommend a short version. If you want the really long version, check my blog out here by the time this episode gets posted. Otherwise, you can join Jesse and me on our other podcast that we do for Southgate Media, Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, as we wait patiently for the first episode to be posted. Now, we've recorded 3 episodes as requested by Rob. So, Rob, your move as far as we're concerned. So, we're just waiting for those to get posted so everybody can check out Titan Talk, the Titans podcast.
Absolutely. So, Charles.
Yes.
Thank you for putting through our bad connection. I'm going to end with a better time, a simpler time, said the doctor. That's what we all yearn for. The pain of wanting to belong somewhere, to go home.
Very nice. All right. So thanks, everybody, for listening to Next Stop Everywhere. And come on back. And it's going to be 3 weeks for the Shakespeare Code with special guest companion Christine Peruski. So come on back, and we'll see you next time right here at Next Stop Everywhere. Bye, everybody.